What are early signs of an abusive partner? The feeling of walking on eggshells and going out of your way to make sure you don't do anything they don't like. When you start hiding menial things like eating without them because of the fit they will throw. When they try to prevent you from hanging out or even talking to your friends and family. A lot of abusers get away with their behavior because they isolate their victims from people who would be able to support and protect them, and therefore make them completely dependent. Leaving a social event to go home because you know you have to and dreading coming home, though really that can apply to lots of situations. If you feel like you have to put your own interests on the back burner in favor of theirs. If you feel guilty for doing something harmless and innocent that you normally like to do, just because you're afraid that they won't approve of it. If you offend them, it's your fault because you're an butthole. But if they offend you, it's also your fault because you're sensitive. You cannot have a good time with your friends. They emotionally blackmail you into bringing them along and then sulk all the time, making you choose between friends, and so slowly you will lose touch with your friends and family and your world is only your so. Prove me you like me more than your friends. I think one thing that sticks out with a past abusive partner that I was afraid of him going through my phone. Not because I was hiding anything, but because when he did he always found something to get mad about. Also, he could go through my phone anytime he wanted, but I never got more than a glance at a lock screen of his own. He also wanted me to install a tracking app within like less of a month of us beginning to date. Jesus. My wife and I have our fingerprints in each other's Touch ID, but I can't remember the last time either of us went through the other's phone. Most we do is play Pokemon Go for both while the other's driving. Guilt. Guilt everywhere. For every little thing. Vastly out of proportion to how serious the issue is or how easily it can be fixed. Left the butter out of the fridge. Turned up 5 minutes late for something. Dinner was a bit longer than expected. Or a bit burned. Well, that's the thin end of the wedge. Just a little crevice that can be widened over time until you start doubting your every action. Because, contrary to what you might expect, there'll always be something they can latch onto no matter how careful you are. Can't you see all the things your partner does for you? Is it really too much to ask that you don't frick up this one little thing? Really? Or is that beyond you? Honestly, why would anyone else put up with you if you can't even get that right? Very few abusive relationships start with loose fists. First comes the general breaking down of your self-esteem until you feel like you deserve it, because that's when they know you won't fight back or leave. Thinks they're funny but every joke is belittling you. Not just on one or two of your characteristics but every aspect of yourself is up for grabs and inferior. Talks and early about how their exes are crazy. Alternately infantilizes you and expects you to be their caretaker. Thinks they're funny but every joke is belittling you. Not just on one or two of your characteristics but every aspect of yourself is up for grabs and inferior. And then if you tell them to stop, you're being oversensitive and have no sense of humor. But holy heck, if you ever make jokes like that at their expense. You know, I came to this thread because I'm in a new relationship and have very little experience, so I figured it would be a good to learn the warning signs. I didn't expect to see a list of things my dad's been doing for years. They won't take no for an answer when you don't want to do something. They may not become immediately abusive, but will try to coerce you into doing what they want no matter how many times you say you're not really into it at the moment. Then, if you absolutely refuse, they sulk or get really passive aggressive. Selfishness not being centered in self and balanced. I mean they think about their needs being met and are not concerned with your needs. Gaslighting. Somehow, everything is always your fault and never theirs. And they'll beat you so much with their version of the truth, you start to believe it. They will belittle your argument or dismiss it. Had a girl make multiple poor attempts at gaslighting me at a time when most of our communication was through texting, about how I never voiced my frustrations to her and that she never heard from me, when we can both scroll up and see that is 100% false. Sometimes manipulators aren't really the smartest bunch. Have happily never talked to her since. Controlling. Making it seem you're at fault, being emotional. Pulling you away from friends and your social life. Getting easily angry. Constantly questioning your whereabouts. There are many signs. Red flags and gut feelings. Trust it. Showing up where you are uninvited. Extreme clingy where you can't really do anything on your own. Also turning tables on you when you actually have a problem with something. Somehow make you feel bad when you shouldn't feel bad. Controlling behavior, always assuming control, and undermining your ability to do anything yourself. This can't be done quite subtly at first, with an air of pretended concern. When you say you're in some kind of discomfort, distress, and they either couldn't care less or dismiss it, saying you're imagining it. When your friends, family or strangers don't like them or vice versa. I realized he was awful to me when I was scared to introduce him to my friends from school. I just knew they weren't going to get along. I didn't like the way his actions reflected into me. I also never invited him to hang out with family because he embarrassed me. I justified it because we were mostly fine alone. It was only when I saw how other people reacted to the way he talked to me and treated me that I understood what was wrong. Reading this thread is making me realize that I exhibit some of these behaviors, but I don't want to. I love the people I'm with, but I can definitely be passive aggressive and needy. I don't want to abuse the people I want to make happy. Everyone has weak moments and falls into some of this sometimes, but if you catch yourself, apologize anytime it happens, and do your best to change your ways, then you're being a good person. The issue is people go to extremes, repeat the same behavior, and can't admit they are wrong. People talk about control, and that's a big thing. The control, the isolation, the constant contact. But those usually happen slowly. They learn your boundaries, your comfort zones, and they nudge you out of them a step at a time until you're putting up with things that are previous you would never have tolerated. For the first month or two, the biggest warning sign that I can think of is when things move too fast. Like, scary fast. Like, you're not sure how you're feeling except that you're excited and a little off balance. There are lots of important relationship milestones, and if they're all coming together before you can really settle in and adjust, it could be that you're being kept off balance on purpose. Pushing the relationship to the next level while you're still emotionally dizzy from reaching the previous level keeps you feeling excited about the other person. You get caught up in the crazy momentum. Nobody's made you feel this way before. You aren't thinking clearly. There's no time for a foundation of trust and partnership. You feel wanted, you feel needed, and you're seeing them on their absolute best behavior to set the hook in your jaw and reel you in. Sex by itself isn't really a big milestone. Usually, dating culture has evolved enough that a lot of the preliminary compatibility discussions happen remotely before the couple meets in person, and sex on the first date can still result in a long-term happy and successful relationship. I'm talking more like the I love you exchange, the family introduction, the cohabitation stage, the taking vacations together stage. Being criticized when doing the right thing. Loaded the dishwasher, yet didn't get the dishes stacked quite right, vacuumed, but at the wrong time, cooked breakfast for someone else, but really, who does eggs that way? Watch out for that. Narcissism, a narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, and if it was, that's not a big deal, and if it is, that's not my fault, and if it was, I didn't mean it, and if I did, you deserve it. Quick to anger, not taking responsibility for their own actions, blaming you, telling you can't go somewhere, since you should want to be with them instead. Pushing the blame on others, big red flag. They're really caring, in that they always want to know where you're at, and they start to try to include themselves in every aspect of your life. It can seem cute and affectionate at first, but it takes a hard left to controlling. Little things that normally wouldn't matter get them really upset. They can justify it easily, and when they say it, it makes a lot of sense. So you start to believe that you are the one in the wrong, even though you were sure that what you did was innocuous at first. You know, it was really unfair of me to be 15 minutes late coming home. I know how my partner worries. I definitely shouldn't get so caught up chatting after work. This is one of those slow roll warning signs that can be a huge red flag. If they hate all your friends and family, it may sound legitimate at first, but this could be a tactic, conscious or not, to start isolating you from your support network and start to depend on the abuser, antagonize you and be overall toxic. This is more of a middle sign than an early, but say the abuser gets you to scream back, or be rude, or even abusive yourself. They can then play the "we're both bad" card, which can continue to erode your self-worth and trap you in the relationship. Karma conscious or not, this is a big one. My ex was terribly abusive and I don't think it's because she was trying to be mean. She honestly doesn't understand why someone would want to have interests and friends outside of her. It's mind-boggling, but it's not always on purpose. Still need to get the frick away from it though. There's no excuse for that. When you try to explain how you feel about something, they invalidate your feelings and substitute their own interpretation of how you should be feeling at that moment. They then gaslight you into believing those were your own feelings all along. One time she literally said to me, word for word, "I had you 100% figured out psychologically within months of meeting you. Why I didn't GTFO right then and right there, I'll never know." Blaming outbursts on their anger issues but being able to control their outbursts around their friends, colleagues, family. It will be your fault because you wind them up, talk to that shop assistant, had a missed call, etc. They'll hit you where it doesn't show, at least at first. They'll smash things up, but not anything that matters to them. They'll behave when police show. It's not about losing control, it's about taking it. Double standards. Two sets of rules means you're not in an equitable relationship, and they don't value you. If they don't recognize, respect you as your own person, that goes hand in hand with abusive behavior. It's where you usually see them not taking responsibility for their actions, or trying to control yours. It's impossible to deal with any disagreement because they are never going to communicate with you in an effective way. Conveniently, whatever goes wrong in the relationship will just be your fault. They test your boundaries. They'll do little social experiments on you to see how you'll respond rather than just asking you what you think or what you want. They don't take no for an answer. Sex is the obvious thing here, but it's not just sex. If you give a hard no to going somewhere or eating something or whatever, they'll persist in arguing with you. You must have a hard no for this to work. So rather than saying not now, or you're not sure, or you don't think so, you have a hardcore no way, out of the question, non-negotiable, absolutely not. Some of the time, they'll do the second one, arguing with you and trying to test your boundaries, and then when you call them out on it, they'll claim it was all just a social experiment and they wanted to see how you'd respond. Fortunately, since neither is okay, you don't need to spend much time worrying about which one it really was. Real example, I'd been out with this one guy once, maybe 2 or 3 times, and we were supposed to go out to do a specific thing. We'd agreed what we were going to do ahead of time, and he was driving that day, so he came to pick me up, and then he started driving in the wrong direction. So I asked him what he was doing, and he told me it was a surprise. I said no. I said I agreed to do the thing we'd agreed to, not some surprise. He wouldn't even tell me what it was, but he swore I'd really like it. He probably didn't know me well enough to predict that sort of thing, but he swore he was right. I eventually told him that he needed to pull over and let me out or I'd start screaming and flag down the cops. So he told me the whole thing was just a test. He was trying to determine whether I had a mind of my own or something, and that I had passed his test with flying colors. Obviously, this was bulls, but again, it wouldn't even matter. I wasn't auditioning to be his girlfriend. This was 1,000 years ago, and I'm still mad about that. These ones show up really early, so hopefully you can extricate yourself before they even become a partner. Before hitting comes grabbing. Grabbing with anything but love, affection, desire is a sign things can escalate. Causing pain by grabbing should be a red flag. See also, pushing, shoulder barging, hitting objects near you, throwing things near you, being rough with pets, destroying your possessions. Gaslighting is a huge one. Saying things during an argument and then turning around and telling you they never said that, making you feel like you're the crazy one. When your partner breaks things or hits things near you, it's time to leave. If they punch the wall next to your head, it's time to run. These kinds of dominance displays led to physical violence. And no, they aren't getting it out of their system, they are seeing how far they can go, and you staying tells them now they can actually get violent. Mine once destroyed my entire house, breaking my ceiling fan, punching holes through the kitchen table, etc. He told me that if he hadn't done that to my possessions and house, it would have been my face. There's some insidious forms of abuse, too. Take my wife, For example, she loves to point out obviously any little mistake or lapse in memory I have, especially when other people are around. She also likes to bring up past mistakes I've made during the course of normal conversation with people we meet, even if they are only tangentially related. One recent example is the tire appointment I set up for her car. I set it all up and sent her all of the info of when it was going to be and where. I mentioned it the day before and she lit into me saying I never told her when it was going to be and I never tell her of these things ahead of time and I'm always putting stuff on her. I told her I sent a pic of the appointment to her phone the day I set it up. She claimed she didn't get any pic and I was lying and I always lie to her. Needless to say, I grabbed our phones and showed her the pic I sent her on both phones. She just never bothered to look at it. As soon as I called her out, she denied responsibility and that I still should have told her. This is with everything. The gaslighting she does on top of it makes me question my sanity every day. Oh man. I really hope you can find a way out. No one deserves to live a life of being controlled, humiliated, and gaslit. Yelling and not calmly communicating over any issue. Crying, begging, pleading when they screw up and manipulating you to feel bad for them when they haven't done anything to own the mistake or take action to fix it. That's why abused people stay. Example, crying and saying I didn't want to hit you but you did XYZ. From the specific case I watched my friend get into, the relationship moves very fast. Saying I love you within a couple days fast. The honeymoon phase ends early due to arguments. Somehow, every argument is your fault. And, even worse, you believe it. Becomes very upset if you cannot see them at any point they want. No matter how long you've spent with them or how many days you've stayed with them. Arguments start to feel like a normal fact of life. They start to dislike your friends and try to convince you it's their fault because they are so. They seem uncaring when you're in emotional pain, but then one-up your reaction to make it seem like you're the uncaring one. They say mean things and act surprised when you're upset by it. They may apologize but not without saying things like why are you so sensitive or it was just a joke. You start feeling like you need to ask for permission to make decisions or do simple day-to-day tasks. Your number one concern is whether or not it will start an argument or make them mad. They start holding you responsible for their emotions and state of mind. Everything you wrote is incredibly accurate. This seriously opened my eyes. I'm definitely in an emotionally abusive relationship, but a part of me always doubted it because this is my very first relationship and she said this is normal. Now I feel validated. Thank you so much. Manipulative behavior, regardless of the reasoning. Even if it's directed at someone besides you, it will more than likely find its way to you someday. Grudges. We all can have them, but if they write someone else off over a single perceived slight, it means they're pretty quick to settle me versus their mentality. Disregarding what you want is a big one too, no matter how small. They act disappointed if you have plans with other people, which morphs into guilting you into not seeing your friends anymore. Inequality or non-reciprocal rules. Let me see your phone. Me. Sure, just let me see yours while you look at mine. LOL. Number. Me. Why would I let you see my phone if I can't see yours? Well, you shouldn't have anything to hide. Me. Then neither should you. Yeah, that was not a great first date. Luckily she was waving that burning red flag right in my face, so there was no second date. She genuinely didn't see the reason why I'd want to see her phone if she was browsing mine. First date. Holy frick. Something I haven't seen said yet that I think often gets overlooked but can be very telling is them having a victim's mentality. Later on this can surface as why do you always do this to me? Why do you make me hurt you? But early on I would be concerned if they're always acting like everyone's out to get them and or that nothing is ever their fault. I.e. my last 3 bosses all fired me because they had it out for me, or if they get depressed anytime anything doesn't go their way, or if they get sad that you want to hang out with friends because no one really cares about me, or think that when someone disagrees with them that person is trying to attack them personally because that person secretly hates them. I've known too many people who are stuck in abusive relationships because they said if I leave they'll kill themselves. They said I'm the only thing keeping them out of their depression. They said they need me baby and if I leave them I'll ruin them. It's emotional manipulation, plain and simple, and it's often overlooked. The second they act like you owe them anything emotionally or physically, I would be concerned. Not that this is a concern very early on, but along the lines of making you emotionally obligated to them, making themselves seem emotionally dependent on you. Wanting a baby early on should be a huge warning sign. Anything that comes across as them trying to get a baby should be a big red flag. You don't have to wear protection. I'm on the pill. I don't like the way condoms feel. I'll pull out. I know it's only been a month, but I think we shouldn't worry about all that stuff. I want a kid anyways, whatever it is. If it seems like they're trying to have a baby and you haven't discussed and mutually agreed on it yet, then I would be very concerned. Not necessarily abusive, I don't know, maybe, I'm still recovering, but definitely toxic signs to look out for. Disapproval of a character trait or hobby that they were aware you had before you got together. Contempt for other people's harmless interests and habits. Voicing criticism of your friend's family. Repeatedly making jokes that you've said that you didn't like and then calling you sensitive for it, but then getting upset when you make one joke about them. Hiding your relationship. Acting embarrassed to be seen with you and or introducing you to people as their friend. Willing to go to great lengths to help their friends and family, but if you need comfort, it's suddenly too much effort. Labeling you. Gaslighting. While it is good to have a partner who encourages you to grow and be better, it's a bad sign if they put labels on you that don't have merit. My ex called me controlling, immature, high maintenance and accused me of having abandonment issues, and I apologized for them each time. But when I thought about them alone afterwards, I always, without fail, realize nothing of what I did was actually controlling, immature, high maintenance. And some warning signs for you. A gut feeling that they're fake or that they're doing all those lovely acts because they think it's what people in relationships do, not because they actually want to do it. Feeling overwhelmed, especially by love bombing, unease and or tempering down your interests and hobbies because you don't want them to think you're immature, silly. Altering your behavior to be a better partner to them. Feeling like you have to put on an act, not be yourself to make them continue to like you. Feeling like you're not good enough for them. That's all I have for now. Attempts to separate you from situations where you meet new people. Attempts from separating you from your support groups, family, friends, etc. The sentence "who else but me would put up with you" or variations thereof. "You are lucky that I put up with you, no one else would want you," etc. Constant attempts to make issues about themselves when they are unrelated in order to guilt trip you. Anyone that uses the word love as an excuse. "I did it because I love you. I wouldn't have done it, but I just love you so much." Love isn't a justification for something. Don't forget about "no one else will ever love you like I do." Belittling you. My ex basically took every chance she got to make sure I knew that I was inferior to her, that I would never do better than her, that she's out of my league, etc. Forcing dependency. She also would flaunt her cash and make me feel like I needed her around in order to survive. Not trusting you. If you have a close friend of the opposite sex, experience shows that an abusive partner won't ever be okay with them existing or you talking to them. There are so many other things, but those are my big three. When the sheer mention of someone of the opposite sex's name sends them on a frenzy of accusing you of fricking them in the past or liking them. Watch their reactions when things go awry. Do they fix the problem or just sit and wallow in pity? The latter is going to blame you for their problems eventually. They take you shopping and pick out and pay for everything, and then you are expected to only wear those clothes. You've basically had your wardrobe replaced for you. It happens slowly. Also, if they insist that you can only look sexy for them, because if other men check you out, then you're who's looking to cheat. This. I still remember once when I went to his place wearing a nice dress. I wanted to surprise him. Well, he was all upset and I couldn't understand why. Because I should have changed there, not let others see me dressed like that. My brain stopped functioning when I heard his reasoning. 2 things I've learned. If they've done something that upsets you or makes you angry, it becomes all about your reaction and how that affects them. So if you yell because they've said something deeply offensive that upsets you, they focus on how you yelled at them and it just affected them so much, with zero mention or apology for why you reacted that way. The problem is always you. You feel afraid of bringing anything up that they have done or said that upsets you, because you fear it will lead them to behave destructively towards you or themselves. It is not natural or okay to live in fear of this happening in any relationship. Overly controlling of all aspects of the relationship. What you wear, where you go, what's for dinner. If one person in the relationship feels they should be making all the decisions, that's pretty unhealthy. Quick to anger. Everyone get frustrated over stupid stuff every now and then. But if they are blowing up constantly over mundane things, that's a bad sign of things to come. How do you think they'll handle a real issue? Won't give you any privacy. Even if you are living together, people need a certain amount of privacy and alone time. If they are constantly checking in with you, where you, what you're doing, who you're with, going through your phone, etc. Also a pretty bad sign of things to come. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.